Now, before we go on to the final segment on Fatima, I'd like to say a few words about Lourdes. So, with the help of the Fatima office, I was able to research an out-of-print 1956 book, The Mystery of Lourdes, by Ruth Cranston, who, interestingly enough, is non-Catholic. And now, before we do Fatima, let's briefly look at just a few of the wonders of Lourdes. The very first cure took place while Bernadette was still speaking to Our Lady. As you know, Bernadette had scratched a hole in the ground from which had burst the famous spring of water. A desperate mother had plunged her paralyzed and nearly dead baby boy into the icy water, while a doctor watched both Bernadette and the baby. The baby became calm, and next day he climbed out of his crib and walked. And that was the first. Through the next 100 years, it's estimated that more than 10,000 people have been cured at Lourdes. Cures that happen in all manner and fashion, perhaps at the shrine, or at Mass, in the waters, perhaps on the train coming to Lourdes, or on the train going from Lourdes. Even cures of people who didn't get to Lourdes. For example, the case of Madame Gardelle, who had a tooth extracted. The socket became abscessed, and a growth started inside the mouth, and it rapidly spread. Soon it closed the nasal passage. Soon it extended from the left nostril and covered most of the left side of the face. Then the left eye began to be forced out of its socket. Well, Madame Gardelle didn't go to Lourdes. Her niece had immense faith in Our Lady of Lourdes, and she had the family say novenas for a cure. Also, she used Lourdes water to soak the malignant growth. The patient was in such pain she was receiving 8 morphines a day. She was in constant delirium, and her only nourishment was Lourdes water. A third novena was begun, with priest and neighbours joining in, and that night the patient became calm and slept peacefully. Next day there was no pain and no delirium. The patient asked for food. Then suddenly the niece cried out, "Look, her face!" The others came quickly, and all marvelled at what they saw. The tumour had almost entirely disappeared. The nostril was free, and the eye had gone back into its socket. The patient regained her appetite, her strength returned, and she was well again. And a few days later she was back at work. All this is recorded by the Medical Bureau of Lourdes. Madame Gardelle was cured of cancer of the face through Lourdes, but without being present at Lourdes. Skeptics argue that Lourdes is all autosuggestion and emotion. But little children wouldn't be the subject of autosuggestion. In 1937, Francis Pascal, aged 3, was stricken with meningitis, and it resulted in absolute blindness and complete paralysis of both arms and legs. In June 1938, the case was regarded as hopeless and all treatment was stopped. His desperate parents took him to Lourdes, a pitiful 4-year-old, blind and paralyzed and helpless. At the grotto, his mother prayed to the Blessed Virgin to heal him or let him die. August the 23rd, he was bathed in the waters. Then again on August the 26th. As he was being carried away, he moved a finger, and he pointed, and he spoke. "Mama, look, the lady wheeling the little carriage. It's a tricycle. Isn't it pretty?" He'd moved a finger, and he'd seen. From this moment, his sight came back. And before he left Lourdes, he was walking. The World War prevented his case from being brought before the Medical Bureau until 1946, when he was 12 years old, and the doctors then described him as a sturdy boy, tall and well-muscled, who rides a bicycle and goes to his classes at school in normal fashion. The Medical Bureau and then the Medical Commission both confirmed his cure as instantaneous and beyond explanation. Finally, the Church's Canonical Commission pronounced the cure miraculous. In the case of Francis Pascal, is one of the famous cures of Lourdes. Another child, Gardelle, is unique, the cure of an idiot. In 1944, when he was 5 years old, a brain disease paralysed his arms and legs and left him subject to convulsions and epileptic fits. And worst of all, he degenerated into complete idiocy. His speech became guttural sounds. He couldn't even feed himself. He was worse than animal. The doctors pronounced him incurable. And that was his state for 2 years until he was 7. Then his parents took him to Lourdes in 1946. After his first bathing it happened. His eyes opened, he looked around, he reached for his mother, and in a clear voice he said, "Mama." In the days that followed, his mind reawakened. He talked and he moved his arms and legs perfectly, while the doctors watched in stupefaction. In 1947, 40 doctors at the Medical Bureau certified, "This child is normal." They unanimously declared that it had been supernaturally cured. But the case couldn't go on to the Medical Commission because the doctors who had attended the boy before his visit to Lourdes refused to produce any records or certificates. All they'd say was, "Lourdes, we're not interested." So Gardelle's case was not pronounced a miracle, not even an official cure. But scores of doctors, and Gardelle himself, had no doubt that a great miracle had restored the paralysed idiot. And the doctors continued to wonder, with what brain does this child now think? Is it with an idiot's brain? Is he thinking with a brain that should not think, like another child saw with eyes that should not see? Or was it with a new brain? It had to be one or the other. And either way, it was miraculous. Now we mention Colonel Pellegrin, 51-year-old soldier, veteran of Africa and Asia in 2 world wars. Certainly not a man who would be subject to hysteria or autosuggestion. He was a man of action, never a day's sickness until December 1948, when the first pains hit him. After that, he deteriorated until in 1950 he went to Lourdes. He was semi-bedridden, wasted away to 7 stone, weak and feverish, with abscessed liver and with a large open fistula, suppurating and discharging and never looking like healing. This open fistula had to be dressed several times a day. The colonel was bathed in the piscine, then he was taken back to his hotel. He asked his wife to put a new dressing on the fistula. She brought the bandages, and she looked at the wound and then exclaimed, "But it's closed. Paul, you've been cured." As the realization broke through, the colonel and his wife threw their arms around each other and they wept. In October 1951, and again in 1952, a very healthy Colonel Pellegrin was examined by the Medical Bureau, and 29 doctors of the Bureau pronounced the instantaneous closure of a suppurating fistula which was beyond the ordinary. The case was passed on to the International Medical Commission and then on to the Ecclesiastical Authority. And in December 1953, the Archbishop of Toulon pronounced this a miraculous cure. Now let's have just one more, the famous case of Jeanne Fratel, who didn't even know where she was when she was cured. On the 4th of October 1948, Jeanne was so close to death from tuberculous peritonitis she was unconscious when put on the train for Lourdes. During 10 years her abdomen had grown larger and now it was very swollen, hard and thick and very painful. Now she was able to take no nourishment except a little liquid. Next day she was at Mass at the grotto and then to the baths, but no improvement. 3 days later she was carried, dying, to the Mass for the sick at the altar of St. Bernadette. Because of her vomiting, the priest hesitated to give her communion. But the stretcher-bearer insisted, and the priest gave her a fragment. And at that moment, Jeanne Fratel said later, at that moment she suddenly felt well, and only then did she realize that she was at Lourdes. After Mass, she was taken on her stretcher to the grotto, and there she felt as if someone took her under the arms and helped her to sit up. She looked around to see who had helped her and could see no one. Then she felt the same unseen hands take her hands and put them on her abdomen. She looked down, and she saw that her abdomen was no longer swollen, but was normal. And then it happened to her. What happens to so many Lourdes cures? She felt hungry. Before long, she was surprising the staff with her newfound appetite, eating not one, but 2 main courses and then dessert. Then she got up, dressed herself, and walked. That evening she dined well, and that night at 11 o'clock she woke again, hungry, and had another meal. In 1949, the Medical Bureau pronounced it a cure outside the natural law. In 1950, the Medical Commission at Paris declared it an inexplicable cure. Her case history is one of the most detailed of all Lourdes cures, and it was this complete, detailed case history that established her cure as miraculous in the eyes of doctors and clergy. And the delicious irony is that this case history came from the precise records and certificates of her agnostic, unbelieving Dr. Pellegrin, from a doctor who was hostile to religion. Of the 10,000 acknowledged cures at Lourdes, less than 1%, less than 1 in 100, are officially proclaimed miraculous by the Church. So cautious is the Catholic Church not to allow her enemies to find a crack or a weakness or a loophole. The miracles of Lourdes are the answer to the many, and this includes many Catholics in high places, who today are casting doubt on Christ's miracles, who are denying the very possibility that miracles can happen. And now we go on to Fatima.